Good afternoon and a warm welcome to this allocation draw for the semi-finals in Copenhagen.
Since 1956, the Eurovision Song Contest has pampered music fans all across Europe with catchy tunes and spectacular shows. And here in Denmark, we're extremely proud and excited to continue this long-standing tradition when Copenhagen will be hosting this year's event in May. We sincerely hope you'll join us.
And this afternoon, we're so fortunate to have with us the scrutineers of this allocation draw. And they are the executive supervisor from the EBU, Mr. Jon Ola Sand, the executive producer from Danish Broadcasting, Mrs. Pernille Gårdbo, and the voting supervisor, Thomas Niedermeyer. Now, as you all probably know, there will be 2 semi-finals and 1 grand final this coming May in Copenhagen. The first semi-final will be on May 6th. The second will be on May 8th, and the grand final will be on May 10th.
Yes, and a total of 37 countries will be competing. 6 of those countries will go directly to the grand final without having to qualify. Those countries are France, Germany, Italy, Spain, United Kingdom, and the host country, Denmark. However, those countries each have to broadcast and vote in one of the semi-finals.
So the first step in this semi-final allocation draw is to determine which of the 6 countries, 6 pre-qualified countries, will air and vote in which semi-final. However, due to the request of the ARD in Germany, there is a little change in this year's competition, and Mr. Jon Ola Sand will now explain that to us.
Yes, it's more or less the same as last year. ARD has requested to be able to air and vote in the second semi-final. This has been granted by the Eurovision Song Contest reference group.
So that has been controlled, and then we know that Germany has already been allocated to the second semi-final. That means that we now need to determine which semi-final will be aired and voted in by Italy, France, United Kingdom, Spain, and Denmark. And let's get going. So we have those 5 countries in here. And the first country is Spain.
And Spain will air and broadcast in semi-final 1.
The next country of the already pre-qualified is France.
And France will be in semi-final 1 also.
I'm moving on to the next one. Very exciting. If I can get the rubber band off. Italy.
And Italy will be in semi-final 2.
I've already put my hand in the bowl. There's 2 to go. I won't do the last time, promise. Next country is United Kingdom.
United Kingdom goes into semi-final 2.
And the last country now, can we guess it? Can we guess it? Do we know it? Do we know it? I think we do. Ta-da! Denmark!
And Denmark votes in semi-final 1.
There we have it. So now the 6 pre-qualified countries have been taken care of. We have to move on to step number 2. And due to the requests from the Danish Broadcasting Corporation, and that has been approved by the reference group, Mr. Jon Ola Sand will now again explain a little change this year.
Yeah, due to a request from the Danish Broadcasting Corporation, it has been decided that Norway and Sweden shall participate in different semi-finals. And Sweden will participate in the first semi-final on the 6th of May, while Norway will participate in the second semi-final on the 8th of May. And in addition to that, a request from the Israeli broadcaster, ABA, it has been decided that they should, due to a national holiday, that they shall be allocated to the second semi-final.
So we do know now that 3 countries have been pre-allocated, so to speak, to the semi-finals. We now need to determine in which half of their respective semi-finals they will be competing. And the 3 countries are,
Yeah, and I was just going to tell you that if this country draws a red note, that means that the country will be placed in the first half. And a green note means that the country will be placed in the second half of the allocated semi-final.
So let's go ahead and get it done. And the first country that we will be looking at is Sweden. Sweden has been allocated to semi-final number 1. And now we need to determine in which half of semi-final number 1 they will be participating.
Let's find out. Sweden goes into the first half of the first semi-final.
The next country is Norway. Norway has already been allocated to semi-final number 2.
And Norway goes into the first half of the second semi-final.
And the last of the pre-allocated countries is Israel.
Israel goes into the first half of the second semi-final.
So now we move on to step number 3 of this allocation draw. And I'll really need you all to pay very close attention now, because this is a bit complicated. We have 6 bowls with us for this allocation draw. And in them we have the names of the remaining countries that have not yet been allocated to semi-finals. And in a few moments we will know which country goes into which semi-final.
And again, it is important to stress that countries that draw a red note will start in the first half of the allocated semi-final, and countries that draw a green note will start in the second half of the respective semi-final.
But the countries, as you can see, have been put in 6 different bowls, and they have been placed in these bowls based on voting patterns from the previous 10 years. And that has been done in a way to kind of separate countries that normally tend to vote for each other in the different semi-finals, the idea being to increase the excitement and to decrease the predictability of so-called neighbor voting. It is the televoting partner Digame that has calculated which country should be in which bowl.
As you may be able to see, there are 5 countries in the first 4 bowls, and there are 4 countries in the remaining 2 bowls. We have to, before we begin the drawing, we have to determine in which semi-final the 5th country from bowl 1 through 4 should be allocated to later. We'll find that out shortly, and then we will place the note in front of the bowl, and then we can return to them later on.
Exactly. But before we do that, I have yet another explanation, because the Danish Broadcasting has requested that there be 16 countries in semi-final number 1 and 15 countries in semi-final number 2. As you probably remember, Sweden has already been allocated to semi-final number 1, Norway and Israel to number 2, and that leaves 15 places, so to speak, in the first semi-final and 13 in the second. And with a bit of calculation, you can then see that in the end, we will then have 1 number in each of these 4 bowls, and we will have 3 places left in semi-final number 1, 1 in semi-final number 2. What we do now is that we draw in which semi-final the remaining country from these 4 bowls goes. Pay attention. That's what we do now. So, bowl number 1.
Yes, the last country from bowl number 1 goes into semi-final 2.
Thank you.
The last country from bowl number 2 goes into semi-final 1. The last country from bowl 3 goes into semi-final 1. Ooh. And the last country from bowl number 4 goes into semi-final number 1.
Thank you. So now we have that sorted out, we can go ahead to the actual drawing of which country goes into which semi-final. We will have the 6 bowls, and the way we do it is we do 1 full row of semi-final number 1, 1 full row of semi-final number 2, then we repeat that, and then believe me, there will be 1 name left in each of the first 4 bowls. Just wait and see. Are you ready? Here we go. Okay, so...
It is all going to make sense in the end, won't it?
Exactly. It will make sense in the end. It's very logical once you get the feeling of it. So, first country in semi-final number 1 is Albania.
Albania goes into the first half of the first semi-final.
The next country in semi-final number 1 in the first semi-final is Iceland.
And Iceland will be in the first half of the first semi-final.
Third name for the first semi-final is, Russia.
Russia goes into the first half of the first semi-final.
And Belgium will also be in the first semi-final.
And Belgium will be in the second part of the first semi-final.
In the first semi-final, we will also see Hungary.
And Hungary goes into the second part of the first semi-final.
And the last one in this round of semi-final number 1 is Moldova.
And Moldova goes into the second part of the first semi-final.
So that was the first round of semi-final 1. We now do a round of semi-final number 2. And you've shifted bowl so that you're ready. And in semi-final number 2, we will meet the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia.
And the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia will be in the second half of the second semi-final.
Next country in the second semi-final will be Finland.
Finland goes into the second part of the second semi-final.
Next up for the second semi-final is Georgia.
Georgia will be in the first part of the second semi-final.
Next country in the second semi-final is Ireland.
And Ireland will be in the second part of the second semi-final.
Now we will have in the second semi-final Austria.
And Austria will be in the first part of the second semi-final.
And last country in this round of semi-final number 2 is Romania.
Romania we shall see in the second part of the second semi-final.
So we've done a full round of semi-final 1, one of semi-final 2. Now we do semi-final 1 again, because we mix them, because it's a draw. So, semi-final number 1, Montenegro.
Montenegro will be in the second part of the first semi-final.
Next country in the first semi-final will be Latvia.
Latvia goes into the first part of the first semi-final.
The next country in semi-final number 1 is Azerbaijan.
and Azerbaijan will be in the first part of the first semi-final.
In the first semi-final, we will also meet Armenia.
But in which half?
But in which half? Tell us, Ulla, tell us.
I will tell you. It will be in the first half of the first semi-final.
Yay! Okay, so the next country in semi-final number 1 is San Marino.
San Marino will be in the second part of the first semi-final.
And the last country in this round of semi-final number 1 is Portugal.
And Portugal will be in the second part of the first semi-final.
Now, guess what happens? We do a full round of semi-final number 2 again. It's the last full round, so we have 2 left here. In semi-final number 2, we will meet Slovenia.
And Slovenia goes into the second half of the second semi-final.
The second semi-final will also show us Lithuania.
And Lithuania goes into the first part of the second semi-final.
In the second semi-final, we will also have Belarus.
Belarus will be in the second part of the second semi-final.
And in semi-final number 2, we will meet Greece.
And we will meet Greece in the second half of the second semi-final.
Not much swooshing around here left now. We're getting towards the end. In the second semi-final, we will also meet Poland.
And Poland will be in, trigger one, will be in the first half of the second semi-final.
And the last country in this round is Malta.
Malta. I'm really mixing it up now. Malta goes into the first part of the second semi-final.
And now, would you believe, as we told you, there would be 2 empty bowls, and there's 1 left in each of the first 4, and we already know which semi-final they go to, but not in which half they go. So that's what we'll do now. We know that this country will be in semi-final number 2, and the country going into semi-final number 2 here is Switzerland.
And Switzerland is in the second part of the second semi-final.
From bowl number 2, I'll take 1 more participant for semi-final number 1, and that is Estonia.
Let's see which half Estonia goes into in the first semi-final. First half of the first semi-final.
The second last country that goes into semi-final number 1 is Ukraine.
Ukraine goes into the second half of the first semi-final.
Leaving us with just 1 country.
I really hope it adds up now.
It should add up. I have 1, you have 1. It should add up. So this is the last country at all, and it will be in semi-final number 1, and it is the Netherlands.
And the Netherlands will be in the second part of the first semi-final.
There we have it. And would you believe it, the bowls are empty, and your bowls are empty too, and all the places are taken.
It's like a magic trick, isn't it?
It worked. So we have the results. We have 16 countries competing in the first semi-final, 15 countries in the second, and amongst them lies this year's winner. It's exciting, isn't it?
It sure is. Now let's take a look at the final results of today's allocation draw. There you have it, the 2 Eurovision semi-finals.
And let us just stress that what we know now is which country will be in which half of which semi-final, but the exact order, running order for the shows. This means that the draw is over. We have drawn the total lot, and before we thank the scrutineers, let me just hand it over to the executive producer of the whole big thing, Mrs. Pernille Gårdbo.
Thank you. Let me just say that today is an important and significant milestone in producing and getting along with the planning of this show. And now we finally have the allocation of the countries, and that's wonderful. And this brings us one huge step closer to the realization of the Eurovision Song Contest 2014, and one step further in the planning of 3 fantastic shows. Thank you to Tine Götze and Ulla Essendrup for conducting this draw perfectly and entertaining. And I would like to let all of you know on behalf of the team in DR that we are very, very excited. And we're looking so much forward to all of you joining us in Copenhagen in May. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's take this opportunity to thank all the scrutineers, the executive supervisor from the EBU, Mr. Jon Ola Sand, executive producer Pernille Gårdbo, and voting supervisor Thomas Niedermeyer. Thank you to all of you.
Well, what we all have to do now is wait for nearly 4 months, except you guys. I think you have quite a bit of work ahead of you.
And we're looking so much forward to welcoming you all here in that particular week of May. I'm sure it'll be fantastic. We'll look forward to welcoming you back in Copenhagen in the beginning of May for the 2 semi-finals and for the grand final of the Eurovision Song Contest on May 10th. Thank you and goodbye for now.